Time for some more horror book recs. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zach with Zacks Books, and today I've got horror book recommendations part 8. I'm already up to 8, and one of these books I'm surprised has not been in any of the first 7. So you will see that honestly first. So we will link the 6 of these down below if you're intrigued with any of them. Also down below is Danielle's channel and the Patreon. Help support the channel. All good things happen. And yeah, very excited to talk about these guys because a lot of these guys are pretty big heavy hitters, honestly. So very exciting times. If you are not subscribed, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and comment down below. And let's get into the list of books. A refresher on how I usually like doing these is I will kind of mix in older books with newer books. I will say though, a lot of these are a little bit on the older side, but just haven't read a lot of like horror lately. So, but yeah, very exciting stuff. And again, I usually like intermixing a king into these as best as I can. The thriller ones are starting to get a little tougher with, but horror, I've got plenty to choose from. So, speaking of which, the first book I'm going to talk about, which is going to send me down a ginormous rabbit hole of wanting to read this darn thing again, The Shining. This has not been in a horror recs, and I don't know what the hell I was thinking. So, I mean, maybe I was trying to avoid like the obvious ones maybe, because I don't think it has been in one of these either. Maybe it has, I don't know. If you haven't seen the first 7, check them out. But yeah, The Shining, Stephen King. It's a masterpiece. I absolutely love this book, and this is going to make this video probably 20 minutes long, because I can't ever shut up about this book. So, this book, we are following the Torrance family, Jack, Wendy, and Danny. As the father, Jack, takes on the role as the winter caretaker at the Overlook Hotel. And the Overlook has got quite a past to it, and the Torrance family's son, Danny, has got a special ability. He's got what is called the shine to him. So he can see things that other people really can't, and the Overlook Hotel has got plenty of ghosts from its past, and Danny can see pretty much like all of them, and a lot of bad things happen at the hotel. This book is really, really good. I gave this 5 stars. I'm pretty sure all these I gave 5, except for maybe one of them. But regardless, all of these were really good. This book in particular is my favorite horror book that Stephen King has ever written. It is like basically neck and neck as my favorite Stephen King book of all time. 11/22/63 happened, and that kind of threw a wrench into this book. But regardless, it's still one of my favorite books of all time. It's a really good classic, and I highly recommend this book, obviously because it's in this video. It's so good. It's so good. Now I want to read it. I screwed myself over. Oh my god. Okay, I need to stop talking about this book. There you have The Shining by Stephen King. Alright, so my book of the year from 2023 last year was Swan Song by Robert McCammon, and oh my goodness, I am currently reading another Robert McCammon book, Boy's Life, because a lot of people really recommended that book, and so I'm about like maybe halfway through, and it's really good, but I'm not going to talk about that book, because I'm going to talk about this other masterpiece that he wrote. Again, 5 stars. This is basically the comparison to like The Stand by Stephen King. What's the other one? Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. Similar-ish. This one and The Stand are a bit more lethal with what happens to the end of the world. So we're going to talk about that. This is a post-apocalyptic book. Basically, governments throw nukes at each other. The entire world is basically decimated. And we're following a couple different groups of survivors as this evil entity is like kind of is like the Randall Flagg of this story. I don't remember what the creature's name is, but there's 3 people that we're kind of following on like the good side. There's a girl named Sister who I believe was a nun of some sort or something like that. There is my favorite character I think of last year, and like one of my favorite characters ever written, Josh Hutchins, this giant wrestler, big black wrestler from this story, and he like befriends the other main girl that we're following, Swan, who's this little girl who we believe to have this ability to make things grow, to kind of give life. And with the world being destroyed, you have the good side, which has got Swan, Josh, Sister, Sister's a little bit further away from the others in this, but eventually they all meet up somewhere. And then you have the bad side, which has got some general and this little kid, this like kid who like are like become like dictator type like leaders on this other side, the bad side, that are like want to be, you know, they're friends with the big bad guy in this. And their main plot point is they're trying to capture Swan because they want to get their resources back. They've heard about this little girl who has this ability to make things grow, and they want to get her. This has got one of my favorite scenes written, because, and I can't explain it because it's towards the end, but like it's so good. Like you think all hope is lost at one point, and then all of a sudden, boom, and like it literally is my favorite character. It's so good. I cannot. Now I want to read this one. Oh my God, this is why I have issues with these videos, because it makes me want to read them again. Great story, highly recommend it. Swan Song by Robert McCammon. All right, next up is Joe Hill's The Fireman. So this one was a book that I had read when I was trying to read post-apocalyptic books. I had read this, I think, last year as well with Swan Song, and I really did enjoy this story as well. And this is like Joe Hill's version of The Stand as well, obviously. And so this book, we're basically following a girl named Harper who is a nurse. This disease breaks out, and honestly, it's got such a funky name. Draco Incendia Trichophyton. I definitely probably botched that last word. But they call it dragon scale. Basically, if you get infected, you like kind of like burn up and you like get these weird like scales on you, and then you just kind of like die. I don't remember if it's either you blow up or you just like just combust or what it was, but it was a very creepy story to read because of all like the stuff that happens in it. There is the lore of this book was just like there's so much that was going on. Obviously it's a bit on the bigger side, and there's so much stuff that happens in this. I really did like this story. Harper has there's some people who are immune to it and a lot of people who are not, and basically she ends up going to like, you know, eventually she gets into this camp. There's this rumor of this guy called the Fireman who walks around in like a yellow coat, and he like controls the fire and stuff like that, and there's all this weird stuff that happens in this, but it was still a very, very good story, and I absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 stars, obviously. Not much else I could really say about it. It's really long. That's like the only real like issue I had with it. It was kind of long for the story I was getting out of it. But overall, very great story. I really did like this, and it's one of my favorites from Joe Hill out of the 2 that I've liked so far. So, there you have The Fireman by Joe Hill. Alright, next up is The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. So this one's weird. This one we're following the Sabin family, and basically this, the father, whose name is Trent, he basically is like trying to be this like really big DIYer, and so he starts watching like these YouTube videos like for repairs around the house and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden all the videos kind of start getting really weird and a little bit sadistic. They're like being really specific and being like really like off-putting for him, and eventually like they have a son, what's his name, Milo is starting to kind of get like a little curious with stuff, and the twist in this book, what I remember, involves the wife Rita and something from her past, and I thought it was like really weird because I don't know, it was weird because the house, like, so it's basically like the house they move into has got like some issues with it, and you know, he's trying to fix them up, and every now and again he starts noticing like, hey, the house like kind of sunk a little bit, like why does this look lower, or like, hey, why is the hose like spigot getting like lower to the ground? And so like you find out the truth about what happened with that, or like what happened with that, why it's happening, and it was a really big twist. I thought it was really creepy. It's kind of like a weird book. Nick Cutter, he had The Troop for me, which was one of my favorite books of 2021. or I think it was 2021 when I read that book, and it was one of my favorite books of the year. Then I read The Deep, which wasn't as good, and then there was Little Heaven, I think was the third book, and I got like 20 pages in, I couldn't even finish it, to be honest. He has a new book coming out this year called Queen, and Nick Cutter is like one of those, like, he's like an Anya Allborn for me. I've kind of gotten away from it, but anything that I like finally discover, I like want to look at. And this was one that we had discovered, and I really wanted to take a look at it, and I really was not like upset by it, but it was just weird. I really did think this was a solid story. It had eeriness, it was creepy, and like I said, that twist with, you know, the twist at the end, I can't say anything else because, well, it's a twist, was shocking. I didn't really expect to see that. So, but yeah, there you have The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. Alright, next up is an author that I don't think this was the last book I've read by him. It's been a while since he's come up with something, I think. How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This was a book I did last year. This was like the last one I did before we found out we were having Maverick, I think, and then we just kind of went on a big pause. This was, I think, my second or third favorite book of last year. It was a very, very good story. It was so creepy and eerie. What was the doll's name? Oh my goodness, that is going to kill me. Basically, we're following Louise and her brother Mark. They're not really people who get along at the beginning of the book. And basically what happens is, I think it's their mother or their father passes away. I think it's both of them. And they have a house full of puppets. Like, it's like something like out of like a pure horror story. Basically, Louise wants to keep the house for nostalgic purposes, and Mark is trying to fix it up to sell it. But like, there's like big disagreements, and like she won't sign something, and so they keep going back and forth. And meanwhile, there is this entity in the house that is like a puppet. Pumpkin is also a really creepy character, and basically is like this, it's one of the puppets that they had as a kid that is like real. And so basically the premise of this story that we're getting is the two siblings are trying to like fight the evil entity. They're trying to get along at the same time. They're having disagreements. She's hearing things and seeing things. She's trying to stay in the house, but all this stuff is going on. Mark's calling her nuts. Then all of a sudden all this bad stuff starts happening, and then Mark finally gets convinced. It's a really, really cool story, and I loved the ending of this, and I thought it was very heartwarming and cool, and Pumpkin was a terrifying creation by Grady Hendrix. I also forgot what its catchphrase was, but it was really, really weird. Really good story. I really did love this book, How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Alright, last up is going to be, just like with Nick Cutter, another author that I had read, would you say almost, well actually no, he's actually got a lot more stuff out than I thought. I've read a very solid chunk of his stuff, and honestly I thought I had read like 90% of it, but my god, I'm way off. Kin by Keelan Patrick Burke. This is another one that I thought I had put in one of these horror wrecks, and I did not. This was one of the most, how do I want to put this? One of the most graphic novels that I have read. It is gruesome. If you have, I'll compare it to a movie. If you've seen Wrong Turn, then that is how I can describe this to you. It's such a disturbing book. Basically, this woman named Claire survives this gruesome like attack on her and her friends, and it's so creepy. This family was so like bizarre. Basically, it's a bunch of cannibals, and they're just like, it was gross to read this book, but it was a very good book. I mean, I gave all these 5. Handyman Method, I think I might give it 4.5, but I don't remember. But this book, I mean, there's not much else I really want to say, because I've already said, like, even though I haven't said much, I've said, like, enough to make, like, I don't really want to say more. So, because it's graphic. Just be aware that if you've seen Wrong Turn and you thought that was, like, too gruesome for you, then this might not be the book for you to read. However, if you're all for that gory, weird, sadistic cannibalism stuff, then I would say read Kin, because it's just like that. It's graphic as can be. So, but yeah, no, a very, very good book, and like I said, all that, you know, I didn't say much, but what I've said I think is plenty enough. So, yeah, Cannibals, Killing Patrick Burke. It's actually one of the longer ones he has, so. But yeah, very solid story. Definitely would recommend it, and it is creepy and gory as can be. Kin by Killing Patrick Burke. Alright, so there you have my horror book recs, part 8. I'm very excited for these guys. Like I said, we'll link the 6 of these guys down below. Let me know if you have any horror recommendations. Again, there's 7 other of these videos out there, so you might have a repeat. It's whatever. Again, we'll have these linked down below. I want to read The Shining now, and I'm upset about it, so. But yeah, don't forget to check out the stuff down below. Got Danielle's channel, the Patreon, like I said. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you have any other recommendations for me, again, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.